Good morning and welcome to the Community Church of Chapel Hill, Unitarian Universalist. My name is Bill Rote and I'm a member of the Worship Associates Ministry here at the church, and our minister is the Reverend Thom Belote. You may not recognize him without his blue hair, but Tom's here. I especially want to welcome any visitors or newcomers to our church and to call your attention to the special note for you, welcome guests and newcomers, on the backside of the order of service. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived at this beloved place, you are welcome here. I would also like to welcome those of you attending online and to note that the hymn lyrics and all the elements and text of the service will be displayed on the live stream screen. For the complete order of service, including weekly announcements, schedule, and upcoming events, the link to the PDF is in this morning's church email and on the church's webpage. I'd also like to mention a few things. We are masking indoors in the sanctuary on Sunday morning as a way of striving to be an inclusive community. All outside areas are mask optional. Our Sunday social is hosted by Rachel Rose and the Welcoming Ministry. The in-person social will be held immediately following the service. Today, I believe they're going to be serving coffee outside and have the church bazaar inside of the Jones building, where it is mask optional. The Zoom link is in the weekly announcements and Sunday morning email. And finally, if you haven't already done so, please turn off all cell phones to maintain a worshipful experience. These opening words. Yes, Rick Szymanski, thank you. We have a Share the Plate for IFC today with Rick Szymanski.
Okay, well, in case you haven't figured it out, my name is Rick Szymanski. It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning. As a local nonprofit, the Interfaith Council for Social Services is a sizable organization tasked with the challenges of huge problems. Examples: food security. The IFC operates the community kitchen and the community market that provides over 50,000 hot meals a year and over 15,000 bags of groceries. Homelessness. The IFC is the only organization in Orange County that offers shelter for those who are homeless. They run the Community House for Men and Home Start for women and families. And social justice. The IFC works cooperatively with several community organizations to address social justice initiatives, especially affordable housing. That's a big job, but the broad scope of the services provided might lead a donor to wonder, where does my money go and what is the impact? It has been well established by psychologists that, generally speaking, people feel more empathy and an urge to help in situations that involve specific, identifiable individuals compared to situations where those in need are a larger, vaguer group. By the way, this is called the identifiable victim effect, and it can be challenging, and it can be a challenge that nonprofits like the IFC faced. As far as what difference we can make when we donate, my inclination was just to think about the power and importance of community, and really the essential role that everyone plays in a community, such as the IFC community of volunteers and monetary contributors. Interestingly, when I was working on the script this week, I received an email from IFC leadership on the subject of fundraising. The wording in that communication really struck a chord with me, and here it is. We show up and contribute because of our commitment to the values we learned in childhood in our homes and schools and in our houses of worship. that every person is deserving of kindness, respect, and the basics of life, including a roof over our heads, plenty of food, and people who care about us. Something to consider.
Please stand in body and spirit as you're able. Let's join in the opening hymn, number 225. Thanks. These opening words this morning are by John Taylor. If there were no Advent, we would need to invent it. We human creatures, in spite of all that has happened to us and has been done by us, are still hopeful. Something new, something vital, something promising is always coming, and we are always expecting. Thus, in Advent, candles are lighted to mark the time of preparation, and with each light, our anticipation grows, as it should. We are, after all, a hopeful people, and that hopefulness deserves a festival. Advent is a time of anticipation, and as long as we expect it, as long as we hope, someone will light a candle against the prevailing darkness, and neither the winds of hate nor the gales of evil will extinguish it. Come, let us worship together. And the words for the chalice lighting are in your order of service. And if you would join me in reading them in just a moment, I'd like to give it a little introduction. Our chalice lighting words this morning come from the Gospel of Mark. They're the words that were adapted into the famous hymn, "This Little Light of Mine." I invite you to join me in reading them. Is a lamp brought in to be put under the bushel basket or under the bed and not on the lampstand? For there is nothing hidden except to be disclosed, nor anything secret except to come to light. In addition to letting the little light of our chalice shine, we also light candles on our Advent wreath. This morning is the second Sunday of Advent, so we light the first two candles on our Advent wreath for hope and for peace.
This past summer at the Association of UU Music Ministries AUM conference in Ann Arbor, there was a music director who's currently in Minneapolis named Glenn Rideout Smith, an African-American music director, UU, who encouraged us all to get the African-American hymnal, heritage hymnal, because it has wonderful arrangements and of classic spiritual and gospel songs. And I did, and I found really great resources in there, but it's always sort of problematic at UU Church to sing Jesus songs. So when Reverend Thom came up with the topic, Reclaiming Jesus, I thought this is a great opportunity to sing some of these songs. So we're gonna, yeah, that's right, this is our one. So we're gonna do two sets of songs we just decided on this morning, and first one is gonna be made up of Ride On, King Jesus. There's something about that name, and I'm so glad Jesus lifted me.
Each week in our service, we hold a time for sharing the joys and the sorrows that we bring to this church community. During this time, if you've come this morning with either a significant personal joy or a significant sorrow, you're invited to come forward to place a stone in the bowl, say your name, and briefly, in a sentence or maybe two, say your joy or your sorrow. What we do is people come down the side aisles and then speak, and then often we'll return whichever way is most comfortable. Are there any joys and sorrows this morning? We have a few.
My name's Mary Hewlett, and I had come with two, one's a sorrow and one's a concern. My sister has been battling stage 4 breast cancer for 6 years. She was diagnosed in November of 2016 and told she had about a 4-year life expectancy, and her first thoughts were, oh my God, 4 years of Trump. My last 4 years. She's outlived that, but it's now spreading and it's now getting worse. And because I broke my wrist, I wasn't able to go see her this weekend, but I will get there in January. But do hold her in your thoughts. This is my sister, Meg Miner. And my other stone is for our first immigrant, Jamie Munoz Rivera, who came here 4 years ago and has lived in the manse. Her asylum trial is in a week from Friday. It's on the 16th of December. She has a very good case. She should qualify for asylum. She is a terrible witness. And we have worked and worked and worked. But her answer to most questions is to just smile at you and say, I don't know. And this is not going to get her asylum. So really, say prayers, say whatever you say for Jamie on the 16th, because I would love for her to win her asylum case. We all would. Thank you.
I dropped this stone. Oh, well, first of all, I'm Nancy Mayer. I dropped this stone from my second cousin, once removed, David Kessler, who died on Thursday morning from a recurring brain tumor. We all miss him.
Hi, my name is Pam Webb, and there's a member of our community, I think I won't say the name, who is really struggling with some family issues, and I just ask that we really hold them, a space for them.
Good morning. My name is Dawn Carter. A week ago today, my sister-in-law's father collapsed at church and was rushed through the ICU, put on a ventilator. A little bit shocking. He's a 9th-generation farmer. He's in his 60s, very healthy and fit. Seems like it was an electrical issue with his heart. But based on a brain MRI scan, they took him off of all support on Thursday, and so now just the vigil starts. So if you will keep his wife and his children and his sister in your prayers as they deal with this over the next few days. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Betsy Yerrison, and actually I have a joy. Yesterday, my baby brother turned 69. This is the age at which we lost our dad, so this is a milestone for the family, I think. We've now all outlived him. And I wish him a happy journey into his 70s. And I just wanted to share that one of my happiest memories of my brother is that when he was a very little kid, in the Unitarian Church, when once upon a time we used to say the Lord's Prayer, he demonstrated to us all how you make this religion your own by deciding at about 4, I guess, to say, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the eagle.
My name is Bill Rote, and I have a couple of joys kind of combined. After a 3-year hiatus, we had Thanksgiving dinner here at church, and last night we did the greening and had the chili dinner. And I just want to thank everybody who attended and who helped with all the work. Thank you very much.
Final stone is placed this morning for all those joys and sorrows that we hold in our hearts which were not spoken. I invite you to join with me for a time of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life and love, as we turn from Thanksgiving into December, as we enter into this season of Advent, as we enter into this season of Christmas, as we enter into this season of Hanukkah and solstice and Kwanzaa. We ask for us to hold in our thoughts and in our care all those who face grief during this season, those who have lost a loved one, or anticipate a family member or a loved one's journey from this world to the next. We hold in our hearts as well the celebrations of community, family, and love. We give thanks for the Thanksgiving meal here at church and the chili supper and the holiday carol sing. Help us to delight in one another, delight in serving our community, and delight in the gifts that this season brings. At a time in our world and in our nation where anti-Semitism is on the rise, where violence afflicts those marginalized. Help us to ever live in ways that are more inclusive, in ways that build bonds, and in ways that affirm, with no exceptions, the dignity and worth of every person. Amidst the prayers of this community and the prayers of our world, let us hold before us a few moments of silence. I invite you to be still with me. Our prayers have been shared and spoken and held in silence. Let us sing together. Our meditation song is Dona Nobis Pacem, and I invite us to remain seated as we sing it together.
Let's sing it together once in unison, all three parts, and then we'll go into a three-part round, and I'll split the congregation into three parts. If we could have the choir members help.
The reading this morning is a poem by J. Hume. The author is a transgender performance poet, speaker, and educator, currently the poet in residence at the Poets' Church at St. Giles in the Fields in central London. The title of the poem is Jesus at the Gay Bar. He's here in the midst of it, right at the center of the dance floor, robes hitched up to his knees to make it easy to spin. At some point in the evening, a boy will touch the hem of his robe and beg to be healed, beg to be anything other than this. And he will reach his arms out, sweat damp and weary from dance, and he will cup the boy's face in his hand and said, "My beautiful child, there is nothing in this heart of yours that ever needs to be healed."
As the choir comes forward, an offering will be generously received. This morning's offering is a Share the Plate for the Interfaith Council for Social Services. If you are writing a check, you can make it out to the community church and just write IFC in the memo line. You're also welcome to use the QR code for giving. As the ushers come forward, we invite you to give generously for our Share the Plate recipient.
So the two hymns we're singing in this set are Jesus is a Rock in a Weary Land and Hush, which many of you know. So if you feel like singing along with Hush, feel free.
I love being in the pulpit on the first Sunday in December when I come in and all the greens are up and the lights are lighted. My sermon begins with kind of a funny story. It's a story about my father-in-law, who's a good man. I'll tell you a little story about him, and to help you imagine this story, I want to describe him. I'm going to describe him in terms of what he typically wears and in terms of his religious views. So sartorially, my father-in-law prefers worn blue jeans, worn sweatshirts, and always a baseball cap. And religiously, he was raised Catholic, but he has been an unchurched agnostic for over 50 years. All right, so we've got the image there. Recently, he came over to our house, and he walked in wearing a red ball cap with shiny, sparkly, glittery, silver lettering that read, "I heart Jesus." "I love Jesus," screamed this hat. And to say the hat was out of character would be an understatement. "Ed, where did you get that hat?" I asked him. He answered, "Well, I was walking in the park and this guy came up to me and gave it to me for free." For free! You can't turn down a free hat. He's been wearing it for over a year now. I also love Jesus, but I wouldn't wear a hat that says it. And the reason I wouldn't wear a hat that says it is that the Jesus that I love, I feel, is often not the same Jesus loved by many who wear hats that say that they love Jesus. And also, I want to be very clear and precise about saying which Jesus it is that I love, lest I give others the wrong impression that I love some other Jesus when I do not. And this creates a tendency to add disclaimers and to clarify and to footnote and to add fine print and to apologize. But when I say that I love Jesus, I really do mean it. And that love, for me, looks like a number of different things. For me, the love looks like loving my roots, because both Unitarianism and Universalism emerged from Christian heresies. They emerged from people who thought of themselves as Christians and took the figure of Jesus very seriously and tried to live a good life and tried to live their faith's confession by following Jesus' teachings. And I love and honor their commitment to faith. For me, that love also looks like claiming Jesus as a source of spiritual inspiration. Of all the world's great religious traditions, Christianity is the one that I'm most familiar with. And I find Jesus' teachings and ministry to be illuminating and challenging and endlessly fascinating and moving and beautiful. Jesus inspires me. And to go even a little deeper, to name just one of the things that I love about Jesus is that I love the depth of his humanity, which is not so much to deny divinity, but rather to just really give attention to that depth of humanity. He is so human, and I love that about him. I love that Jesus gets annoyed and impatient. I love that he experiences doubt and uncertainty and disappointment. I love that he gets mad sometimes. and that sometimes he gets mad enough to turn over tables and break furniture. And even though after the service we're going to have the holiday bazaar in the Jones building, there's going to be no overturning of tables in the temple at coffee hour. And I love that these human qualities coexist with tenderness and generosity and embrace of those who he encounters in his life. And I love what this says about the spiritual life. Jesus, as a spiritual teacher, teaches me that the spiritual life is not found in escapism. The spiritual life is not about escaping from the world, or escaping from injustice, or escaping from community, or escaping from other people, or escaping from our human nature. It's about embracing the world, embracing the struggle for liberation, embracing community, embracing each other, and embracing ourselves, embracing our whole humanity. I call my sermon this morning Reclaiming Jesus. What do I mean by reclaiming? I do believe that Jesus needs to be reclaimed from the religious abuses that have been and are still carried out in his name. But this morning, I'm not going to go that deeply into exploring how we might reclaim Jesus from interpretations of him that run contrary to the spirit of Scripture. There's another kind of reclaiming that might look like learning our religious roots and becoming informed about how late 18th and early 19th century Universalists and Unitarians incorporated Jesus into their spiritual lives. But I don't want to give you all a history lesson this morning. I mean, reclaiming this morning as really more about how we as Unitarian Universalists here and now at the end of 2022 might find and welcome being spiritually sustained from the life and teachings of Jesus, whether that's for the first time or again after some time away. And to do this, to explore how this might be possible, I want to go to a little bit of a radical place, and I want to share with you a description or an overview of the best presentation that I ever attended about Jesus. It was one that left me kind of smiling and wondering and infinitely curious. The presentation was given by a Unitarian Universalist minister named Naomi King, Reverend Naomi King. Interesting side note, Naomi King is the daughter of Stephen King, the former the famous horror writer. So if you take nothing away from this morning, you can take away the factoid that Stephen King, one of Stephen King's daughters, is a Unitarian minister. But the title of the presentation that Naomi King gave was, get ready for this, because it's going to blow your mind. It was entitled, "The Queer Pirate Jesus Wheels into Port." The queer pirate Jesus wheels into port. And her presentation was all about how we can find ways of interpreting the story of Jesus that open the story up for us spiritually and imaginationally. She was being both very playful and very serious at the same time. She was being seriously playful. Her presentation first turned to queer theory. Queer theory looks at the way in which dominant, exclusive, normative ways of looking at gender, identity, sexuality, and family structure can be challenged. And if you read the Gospels closely, you find that the Gospels are suffused with queerness. Jesus' ministry includes subversive teachings about gender roles, evidenced in the leadership of Mary Magdalene and the interaction of Mary and Martha and elsewhere. The community of disciples he forms resembles an alternative family structure. Fundamentalist Christians today have focus on the family, but Jesus taught, if you come to me but will not leave your family, you cannot be my follower. Which is not to say that there isn't content in the Gospels which has been used to support restrictive and narrow views of gender and sexuality. But there's also a lot in there that is downright subversive and liberating. That poem, that beautiful, beautiful poem that Bill read as the reading, is an example of a plan where Jesus is embrace and love. And if you think of a queer reading of the Gospels as surprising, just wait, because next, Reverend Naomi King introduced us to the idea of looking at the story of Jesus through the lens of piracy. This is actually, there's academic literature about this. I'm not kidding. And it's not about imagining Jesus with an eye patch or a parrot on his shoulder. Pirates are figures that live on the margins of society and who live in conflict with, in tension with, often in violation of the economic, political, and social power structures. We might imagine Robin Hood and his band of merry men. Take from the rich and give to the poor, which might as well be a line from the Sermon on the Mount. And Jesus and his disciples and followers seem to exist in this same way on the margins of the religious and political and economic and social order. Jesus' teachings are a transgression against kings and empires. The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. And so if you really want to get in touch with Jesus' radical and transgressive teachings, that lens, which is also humorous to think about, is a way to do it. And then finally, Reverend King brought up a third way of reading Jesus' Gospels, which is if you read the entirety of the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John, you find that healing and wholeness is one of the most dominant themes running through them. Being whole in who we are. Jesus in the Gospels encounters people with leprosy and other diseases, people who are blind and mute, people who seem to be suffering from mental illness, people with paralysis, people with various other disabilities. And there is a trove of religious scholarship dealing with Jesus and disability and with concepts of human wholeness and inclusion. I want to go off script just a moment here, or digress for just a moment and say where I previously lived, the hospital closest to my church was a hospital founded by the Seventh-day Adventists, which is a Christian denomination. And displayed prominently in the lobby, there was a large painting of a surgery, of a surgeon operating on a patient, and right behind the surgeon stands this figure of Jesus in robes, and he's reaching around the surgeon, guiding the surgeon's scalpel. And to be completely honest here, when I did hospital visits there all the time, I would often think to myself about all the possible sarcastic one-liners to say about this painting. But beyond the sarcasm, and it's a pretty kitschy painting, it's also true that in this reading of the gospel through a disability lens, we find that Jesus touches, puts his hands on, embraces, talks to, sees, recognizes, witnesses every single person he encounters, regardless of social status, regardless of ethnic background, regardless of gender, regardless also of illness or disability. Jesus humanizes those who are so often dehumanized in our culture. The queer pirate Jesus wheels into port. It was an experience of creativity, breaking open all these amazing possibilities for interpreting and encountering and, yes, even reclaiming Jesus. So what might it mean to reclaim Jesus? First, I should point out clearly that we can claim him. He's ours, not exclusively ours, but he can be ours as much as anyone, as much as he can be anyone's. There is no requirement that you do this, by the way, but you can. Second, creative and surprising interpretations of Jesus are not only allowed, they are welcome. If Jesus becomes boring and predictable, shake it up. And finally, if you choose to engage Jesus spiritually, try to be open to the surprises. The parables are full of surprises. The feast is held to honor the prodigal son. It's the Samaritan who helps the injured man by the roadside. Pay attention to what challenges you and to what surprises you. And as we enter into this holiday season, the candles of Hanukkah represent an oil lamp that miraculously burns for 8 nights. The 7 Kwanzaa candles remind us the values of the African American community needed to survive and endure and overcome. The longest night of the solstice asks us to honor the sacredness of the darkness and all that might be born out of it. The star in the sky calls us and the world into new and life-giving directions. As we enter into this holiday season, I invite you to make space for surprises. There can be comfort in the traditional stories, but if they do become boring and rote, no offense, Bill, make room for surprise. Reclaim the place of surprise, delight in startling reversals. Mix new and old. Amen. Blessed be. And we're going to sing our closing hymn. We began with an Advent hymn. We're going to end with an Advent hymn. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join in singing 226, People Look East.
Is the
Please join me in reading the words for extinguishing the chalice, which are in your order of service if you need them. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And let's show our gratitude for the choir this morning. Our closing song, Shalom. If you're comfortable in holding hands, just put your hands out by your side. Otherwise, you can cross your hands over your heart while we sing Shalom.